Welcome to the HIO show, everybody. Stu Cowan here from the Montreal Gazette, joined by our regular panelists, Chris Nyland, former Canadian with TSN Radio 690, columnist Jack Todd, and Andy Bennett from CBC Daybreak. Chris, the post-mortem press conference, the guys were all dressed up like you, blue suits, everything was business-like. So it turns out that Craig Ramsay was, I guess, the big problem with this team. He's the only guy who gets fired. Has Marc Bergevin put his own job on the line by deciding to keep Michel Therrien?
Yeah, listen, I thought that was an odd duck hire anyway. Yeah, here's a guy with a defensive player most of his career. He's going to come in and fix a power play? Just not to fit in here in Montreal. I just don't know what that fit was. I could see if Bob Gainey hired him, maybe, but I think maybe Rick Dudley had something to do with that. They played together in Buffalo. I don't believe that was the problem. When you have a problem with the power play, when you have a problem with the penalty kill, I know you delegate authority to your assistants, but you are the head coach. You are responsible for that. So I don't believe in firing assistant coaches because they didn't handle the power play right. It's the head coach's job to step in and correct it. Did Marc Bergevin make a mistake hitching his wagon to this coach? Yes and no. I mean, we're gonna have to see what he does here in the offseason, because here's the deal. He could make a couple moves here in the offseason, sign a free agent or two, and Price comes back. Next thing, they're in the Stanley Cup final next year. Everybody's going, well, it was good that I guess they didn't fire the coach. So, but it could go the other way, and it could hurt him. But I think Mr. Molson, I think he has a lot of respect for Mark himself. I don't know about the coach, but he's going to go with him on this one. It could cost him down the road.
Yeah, well, I was saying maybe Ramsey wanted to take David Desharnais off the power play, and that cost him his job. At the press conference yesterday, as you said, Marc Bergevin gave him the vote of confidence with Therrien, but Jeff Molson, basically, when he asked about the coach, he said, well, Marc will answer the question. He has faith in Marc, but I don't know how much faith the owners has in the coach still.
In a way, he kept his distance, and the way I read it was, okay, you want your coach back, you got your coach back, and when you go together. And I think if we don't see a playoff performance or if we see a first-round exit, either way, we probably lose the GM and for sure the coach.
I mean, it was bizarre to have Jeff Molson there for that end of the year, and they wanted to have the united front. But let's be honest, we heard mostly from Marc Bergevin at that press conference yesterday. But it was just so strange to watch some of the body language, and they were talking, and you had Molson being like, he's my guy, he's the guy to lead us out of this, to Bergevin. And Bergevin almost, I could almost see him be like, yee, like loosening the collar, because that is some pressure on his shoulders. But as far as the power play, it's been years that the power play has been a disaster, and it's hurting them. And this year, everything went against this team. So, I'm not surprised that Craig Ramsay is one of the guys that goes, but Chris has really convinced me here that it is the head coach that needs to deal with this power play right now, as opposed to trying to have, we've seen it circle around the assistant coaches, and it doesn't work.
How does this play in the room, Chris? You know what it's like to play for a coach that you don't really like.
Listen, I look back on it, and it doesn't look like they quit on him. It looks like, to me, that PK has a problem with the coach. And listen, I've had them. I understand that. You don't like a guy, you don't like a guy. Yeah, you don't always like your boss, but you have to play for him. You have to do what's asked of your boss, and within the team system, within the parameters of the team. And I think that's where there's a disconnect there between PK and the coach. So, listen, you have an issue with the coach, you have an issue with the coach. I just... Well,
he spoke about his fairness, right? How he likes the fact that he's a fair coach. And
tough but fair.
Tough but fair. And we did talk about that a lot at the beginning of the season, that Therrien, that's why the players respond to him, because he is one of those guys that he's fair, he rewards production with ice time. That sort of fell apart at the end of the year, it seemed. But again, there's so many things that you don't know. I didn't know Alex Galchenyuk was playing with a broken finger. That might explain why he wasn't given more ice time than we saw. Who knows? You have to think.
Maybe he was on the wing because of that, not taking face-offs with a broken finger, but... Anyway.
Well, last season, basically, the Canes kept saying, this isn't just Carey Price, this team. We're more than Carey Price. Then yesterday, Marc Bergevin basically said, this team is Carey Price.
Yeah, and that's my big concern. To me, there were three big question marks going into the offseason. Is Therrien coming back? Yes. Are they going to trade PK? I don't think they are. Partly because it would just be so hard to structure. But the big one is Price's health, as everything rides on that. If he comes back and he can play 65 games and be Carey Price and lead him in the playoffs, they could be very good again, especially with Galchenyuk coming on now. You're not going to move him out of that spot now. On the other hand, if he's in and out of the lineup again, it could be just another train wreck because everything rides on one guy, and they haven't been able to correct that.
But I mean, Lars Eller also saying yesterday, and I think he's right in a way. You look at any team in the NHL right now, you lose your starting goaltender for 70-plus games, you're going to have a really hard time. And the Canadiens obviously didn't know they were going to be without Carey Price for that long. And then they had the injuries that just kept piling up and piling up and piling up. So, I mean, on the one hand, you can look at this and be like, as Eller continued to say, this would be a miracle had they been able to make the playoffs, but it is such a small margin of success in the NHL it's an excuse, but it's also the fact, it's the reality of what they dealt with this season.
He's going to be 29 years old, seems to have chronic knee problems. I think it's a pretty big gamble to take. We're talking about PK Subban. He didn't really throw any roses at his coach during the press conference. He was given an opportunity to say, and he basically said, I haven't heard Bergey's press conference. How big of a problem is that?
I think it's, listen, it didn't sound good. And is it going to be a problem? It won't be if PK goes out and does his job and doesn't cause any problems. But and I can see the coach and him just butting heads. I don't know. To me, it doesn't look good. But PK had an opportunity to throw some roses, like you said, and he didn't. And that's okay, too. But again, people say you're reading too much into it, but I don't think
he's always butted heads with his coaches.
Yeah.
Going to every single coach since he left junior, including Babcock. But I think what's changed is, he's gotten farther along. He has the contract now. He's a bigger guy in the room, a bigger guy in the team's plans, and he knows it. And you're getting a little bit of the LeBron James effect there, where the guy fires and hires the coaches.
Maybe too big.
Cancels the coaches. Exactly.
That's the thing. All this talk about the trade. After July 1st, if PK is here, buckle up, boys, because he's going to run the show the rest of the way.
We'll be back after a short break, and we'll talk a little bit about what Jack Todd calls Planet PK. Welcome back, everybody. Jack, you wrote a column recently about calling it Planet PK, how the world revolves around Subban. How big of an issue is Planet PK in that locker room, do you think?
I think it's hard to read, but I think it's becoming an issue. It's becoming an issue with him and the coach, and with him and the organization in the wider sense. I mean, after Jeff Molson stepped up and personally intervened to get him the contract that he's got at a time when I think Bergeron was prepared to let him walk, I don't think he's really thanked Molson by his actions for that. Everybody loves PK. He's everywhere. But now it's like there's Planet CH over here and Planet PK over here. And it started out, he's a little satellite going around. Now he's become the one that everything revolves around. I love the guy on the ice. I don't think he gets enough credit for how good he is 5-on-5. How good he is defensively. He's physical. He doesn't give up. He'll skate until he absolutely dies on the ice. It's more the off ice and in the room stuff that I was questioning.
But what do you mean? What has he done to thank him for that contract? You just said he produces on the ice, off the ice. He's super active in the community. We all know about his big donation. He's got a huge personality.
Commitment.
It's the new
not
NHL.
a donation.
It's the
commitment.
Commitment. Sorry. He made a huge commitment to the hospital, but
Commitment
he puts in the time there.
$10 million.
He puts in the time there. I mean, people love PK Subban for a reason. He is like the new generation of hockey player, and if they can't manage to make it work with the best defenseman, one of the best defensemen in the league, what does that say?
I have to say it's a refreshing change for me and people who are in my business from guys like Sidney Crosby, who wouldn't say crap if his mouth was full of it.
PK spoke for 20 minutes at the postmortem. All his answers were great. But Chris, you're the only one here who's been in an NHL locker room. What would your reaction be with PK in there? What are your thoughts about it?
Again, I'm not in there with him, but just seeing that video with him that time shouting out the lineup, I can imagine how it goes. That comes on strong to a lot of guys, and guys get sick of it. Guys get fed up with it. Listen, I understand he's a fun-loving guy. I understand he does a lot in the community. I understand he's PK, but still, when you go into that locker room, after a while, guys just get fed up. They don't want to hear it. Here he comes again. Here comes the big show. And guys get fed up with it.
But is that another place where they may have been missing Carey Price this year? I mean, you hear players talk about the range of personalities. And if you don't have a counterbalance for that with someone who's quiet and calm like Carey Price and respected, then maybe that does take over a little bit. And you hear Max Pacioretty talking about how they lacked some veteran leadership. I mean, I think about guys like Hal Gill that would give PK, crap for throwing his jersey on the, and PK would say, sorry doesn't mow the lawn. Maybe they need somebody in there like that's just gonna, give him the gears a little bit, like knock him down a peg or two.
Well, I think we learned this year that not only is Carey Price the MVP of the team, he's also the captain of the team, no matter who's wearing the C.
Absolutely. He's got the authority.
Yeah, Bergevin didn't rule out yesterday, Jack, about the possibility of trading PK. He said he's not shopping, but he would listen. How would that play?
How I can see it happen, and this would actually play okay, is if you take one of these top two guys, the draft picks, especially Austin Matthews, and when you know where they're going, if it's Edmonton, which seems to always have the luck in the lottery, and if you cut a deal where you get somebody like Eberle and the top pick, then it would play, I think, in this town. You're still, but then immediately you're moving your future a few years down the line, to at least 2-3 years away, when you've got Price right, that little window to win a Stanley Cup with him. So in that sense, it would be tough. The other way it would be tough is you're moving a $9 million a year contract, and you're going to have to take salary back, which you're not doing if you're taking a draft pick. Very, very difficult to structure the trade, even if you want to make it.
The one thing with PK, I mean, they talk about players who don't want to play in Montreal, don't want to play in the spotlight here. He thrives in it, and maybe takes some of the pressure off of Max Pacioretty. Do you think Max is going forward, life would be easier for him if he didn't have the C on his sweater?
Yes and no. Yes and no. And again, this is a trying year for all of them, and Max being the captain, of course, he's going to take a lot of the focus. But again, I don't care who was there as captain this year. I don't know what anybody could have done considering the circumstances. Like I say, Jonathan Toews in here as a captain. Do you think this team would have made the playoffs? I don't. Could there have been maybe more done on the ice in certain situations, more consistency with Max? Yeah, for sure. But, I don't think because he had to see that this whole season fell apart because of him. I think the leadership group in general, it's like when they were 9-0. I don't think they were 9-0 because Max had the C on. I mean, come on.
Well,
if you get Price back and you get an 80-point season out of Galchenyuk next year, Patch is a great captain, because it's all going to work.
And obviously the leadership group is going to take that brunt when you look at them being unable to stop that tailspin. And I think Pacioretty owned that when he was talking. He said, we needed to do more, and we needed it to be real. And that obviously didn't happen this year.
The Canadiens brought Pacioretty and Subban out at the exact same time on opposite sides of the room.
Awkward.
Yesterday. I listened in on the PK press conference. You spoke with Max, and he opened up a little bit.
He had some really interesting things to say about that leadership group, saying that they need to be better. Most importantly, that they were lacking some veteran leadership, and that when we asked what could you have done better, he talked about the things that you have to do behind closed doors, the things that happen when the cameras are not around, and the fact that when he does speak to the media, he has to keep in mind that what he's saying, his teammates are going to be watching that later that night, and they might be rolling their eyes at things that he says if he's not real, if he's not genuine in his critique or his assessment of why things are going wrong. But I really tipped to that part where he was talking about the dinners, when you have to motivate guys, and he said it has to come from a place of passion and it has to be real, and we failed at doing that this year. And
you talk about the dinners, then you hear Marcos say it's not about dinners.
Yes, I know.
It's not about dinners. It's about what you do on the ice. Okay.
Well, that's it for this season.
It's not about the dinners, and he's right.
That's it for this season of the HIO Show. We hope you've all enjoyed it. Have a fun, healthy summer.